Before we begin, something more important than a shout out. If you clicked on this video just to leave me some snide, snarky comment calling me woke or claiming indoctrination or some other nonsense you've been trained like a parrot to repeat, trust me, you're wasting your time. My filters are going to block whatever you have to say. I'm going to delete your comment, and I'm going to take great pleasure in banning you from ever commenting on my videos again, because every single one of you that I block is going to make my comment section safer for my community, which is what I want. So if you want to out yourself as a bigot, or if you want to show just how much prejudice you have, then yeah, you can leave a comment and it's going to waste your time. Or you can just thumbs down the video and leave right now. So you deny me the pleasure of banning you from my comment section, and you don't waste your time typing something nobody is actually going to see. So can we just do that? So just leave. Just if you don't like the topic, why'd you click on it? Just to be a jerk? Just go. Just leave. So with that little prerequisite out of the way, thank you very much to You Thought the Shoutouts Were Over. You were wrong, for joining my Patreon campaign. Very appreciated. Thank you very much for the support. This is a weird video. It's going to be a weird video today. Bear with me. It might not even be a long video because honestly, this one was a little bit tricky. This was a Patreon request by one of my highest tier patrons. So for Pride Month, and of course, I am an ally. I'm not going to let Pride Month go by without doing some kind of LGBT positive video. They wanted me to speak about trans presence in Transformers, not on the fictional side, but in real life. But the truth is, there's really not a lot. So we've kind of expanded it. We're going to do LGBT real world people in the LGBT that are responsible for Transformers. Even then, it's a little bit thin. So let's go over the fictional side first. Now, we've kind of touched on this before. And keep in mind, I do videos like this because I know there is prejudice in this community. I know they are in the fandom. I do this basically to ruin Transformers for them, specifically. This image on screen is directly from the Transformers brand. They are woke. They are rainbow celebrating. Otherwise, all the IDW couples wouldn't have happened. Hasbro has pride sections on multiple websites. This is not a thing. So if you don't like it, get out of the fandom. Get out of the fandom because it ain't going anywhere. But let's talk the fictional side of things. So obviously, IDW fed people well in this regard. So you want gay couples? Yeah, they provided you quite the banquet. So obviously we have the two main ones, the two major ones, which was Cyclonus and Tailgate, and then Rewind and Chrome Dome. Very opposite sides of the spectrum. In the first relationship, we have two who are very star-crossed and very polar opposite, but they always find themselves back together. And it's Tailgate who knows how he feels, and Cyclonus who's just way too proud to admit it. It is a will they, won't they that go on throughout the entirety of the Lost Light story. Not even just like the Lost Light books, but More Than Meets the Eye previous to that. And it's a very well done will they, won't they. The little bit of cruelty in the beginning before that relationship ever started to blossom. But, that's Cyclonus. He has a lot of issues to get through. But what they eventually became and how they eventually wrote them was wonderful to see, and it was great to see the character development the two provided each other. And then the opposite side of that was Rewind and Chrome Dome, who actually were a couple before we even got to see them in the books for the first time. So you got to see an established relationship and how that went through, and how Chrome Dome's past relationships really affected his current relationship with Rewind. It's two very different love stories that tell very different tones, but both of them are exceptionally well done. And it provides something that we normally don't get to see in Transformers, which is like genuine love stories of various types, too. What about trans characters? We got trans characters. So in the IDW books, and quite a few fictions thereafter. The idea is that Transformers was a predominantly male race. You know, they weren't even aware female races were a thing. In IDW, it's because most left the planet during the war and then eventually returned. However, a lot of times it was they were just not aware that females were a thing. And when they started, finding out other cultures had multiple genders, they started realize some of them in their population started realizing that felt right. That felt more correct than what I am. And it's gone both ways too. Usually a male chassis to female chassis, admittedly. We're looking at Anode and Lug right now, who were a relationship before when they were both male chassis, and then decided, hey, this female thing from these humans feels right. So we got that swap. Both of them are trans female. And guess what? They're still fine. They're actually a lot of fun. They are Autobots, but they are also thieves. And it's kind of fun to watch their antics. I wish we could get to see more of them. They're probably two of my favorites from IDW, just for the gray area amongst the Autobots it causes, because you don't normally think of an Autobot that's willing to basically like steal whenever appropriate for them. Let's see. What else do we have? Well, we got gender fluid. We've got Cyberverse Acid Storm, who likes to swap between a male and female chassis whenever they please. Now, granted, that's due to an animation error, but later on is canonized by the original writers. That's word of God canonization, so in story, it's just an animation error, admittedly, but, there's still something in there that counts, I think. And then, of course, we have we have a non-binary as well. And this is, again, a reminder that a character on a cartoon can literally not indoctrinate your children. That is not how indoctrination works. If you want to know how it works, you need to think back to, if you are like really prejudiced against the LGBT and you're still watching for some reason, you need to think back to when you started to learn that an entire group of people was somehow bad, and one, not realize that is impossible, but also that you believe it implicitly. How many people above you that had control of your life early on in your life told you these things and reinforced them in your mind? How many of them had actual proof? Were they actually presenting you a reason for this? Were they presenting you actual proof that all of these people are universally bad? Or were they just repeating it so often you started to believe it? And now you have, the people you watch on TV, the people you elect that also reinforce these ideas, and you still continue to believe it. Now go look up the definition of indoctrination. You tell me what it sounds like. Once again, nothing is wrong with Nightshade. They are a wonderful character. And so is the person behind them. Let's get into the real people now. So let's meet Z Infante. Aside from having, like, the coolest name I have ever heard in my life, Z Infante is an actual non-binary performer. They have done a little bit. The major things was their start was in School of Rock, back when they were Zachary, and then Gotham was another show. Was the other major show that they've appeared in. It's I believe they're more of a Broadway performer. A lot of these are actually Broadway performers, by the way. But no, I love when casting does this. The Netflix She-Ra was good about this, and the Owl House did this too, where they try to actually put someone who knows the experience of the LGBT character that is in the show, which adds to the performance. It adds authenticity to what they're doing. So always love casting choices like that. All right, so let's just go into we'll go into a little bit of the rainbow spectrum here. Let's go to just straight to gay actors. How about that? So this is John Benjamin Hickey in his role as Director Galloway from Revenge of the Fallen, which was actually a pretty strong role in that movie. At least lots of on-screen time for one of the human characters who wasn't Shia LaBeouf and didn't have breasts. Thank you, Michael Bay. But yeah, that's a pretty pretty big role for the guy. So John also appeared in Jessica Jones, 4 different Law and Order series, all as different characters, by the way. Third Rock from the Sun, NYPD Blue, CSI. I throw Third Rock in the Sun in there just so you know he's done things that aren't crime dramas, because I will admit a lot of his portfolio is crime dramas. And look, I guess he has that he has that government or law enforcement official visual to him. I mean, if you remember his performance in Revenge of the Fallen, you can definitely see it. You can definitely see why he might be typecast in that authoritarian role. He's also a Tony Award winner for The Normal Heart, so we've got award winners amongst this crowd. We talked about IDW. We can continue with that too. So meet Jack Lawrence, who self-proclaimed super gay. From what I've seen on Twitter, wonderful person. So Jack Lawrence is someone on Twitter who was putting together and retweeting everybody who was going to be given a table at TFCon Orlando in the dealer room, artist alley, etc., who are making their table space a safe space, because unfortunately here in Florida, we've got idiots in charge who really want to make some really draconian laws, and it makes it very dangerous to be LGBT in this state, and I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Again, based on literally nothing. So he put it upon himself to point out a lot of people who are stuck going to TFCon Orlando because they've already rented the table space, they booked the hotel, etc. But made it a point to retweet everyone who was providing safe spaces, which I thought was a super cool thing to do. Jack is an interior artist for The Lost Light, 16 issues of what I would call some of the best books Transformers ever put out, as well as the Wrecker's Tread and Circuit series, and 4 issues of the My Little Pony crossover, along with a bunch of different assorted cover arts for the various Transformer books. Jack is still with IDW today. More recently, he's been a cover artist for the new Sonic series. He's got his own projects as well, so he keeps busy. And he's doing really good work, too. Alright, so let's talk about another one. Parvish China. That is distinguished. That is a very, very distinguished man. So, Parvish, this is what I get for not looking into other random shows. This is Blades from Rescue Bots. And this is a rescue, I don't really think about Rescue Bots performers often enough, but interesting. The other credits, there's a lot of credits to Parvish. So we include Barbershop, both of the Barbershop movies, the Live Lady and the Tramp movie, the Bob's Burgers movie. If you want TV credits, he's been in The West Wing, Arrested Development, The Goldbergs, The Big Bang Theory, The Mandalorian. This is a pretty good credit. There's a pretty good list of shows here this guy has been in. Oh, but the 2 I love to see on this list, The Legend of Vox Machina and The Owl House. I love seeing those 2. 2 of my favorite animated shows that have come out in the last couple years, and vastly different sides of the spectrum as far as content goes. Oh man, I love the chameleon nature of voice acting. I really, really do. And again, both of those shows are very upfront about their LGBT presence, so it's good to have people who represent that in those fictions. Very, very good. We'll also talk about Colton Haynes, who admittedly has not done a lot in Transformers, but his start was in Transformers 2007. It was his first role, but he went uncredited. But he's gone on to better things. So he was in CSI Miami, he was in the new Melrose Place, he was in the new Teen Wolf, including the movie version of it, he was in American Horror Story, but the best place to see him is going to be Roy Harper on Arrow, where he is a regular for basically the entire series. That's a pretty big show. It's a pretty big show for someone who got their start as an uncredited performer in the first Bay movie. So good on him. He's done well for his career. And if we're talking about the Bay movies, We have to go with someone bisexual, which would be Megan Fox. This we know Megan. We know Megan at this point. So she's the love interest for Transformers 2007 and Revenge of the Fallen. '07 being her very first performance in a movie, where she admits she doesn't think she did well. So I guess chalk it up to just being new at this. So you'll remember that she is famously a person who went to war with Michael Bay. She was going to be in the third movie, which, if you look at Carly, her replacement as Sam's love interest, it's very, very obvious that that was a role that was going to fit, Michaela. It's very obvious there was a last-minute switch. She was actually seen on set before she was officially rejected. Different claims as to why she left, but ultimately she didn't want to be in any more Michael Bay features. And then 2010 happened, and she was April O'Neil in the Ninja Turtle movies. So much for that. So, the original idea for this was trans people in Transformers. So, there really is only one that I really am aware of that we can speak of, and she's brand new. So this is Michaela Jai Rodriguez, who portrays Nightbird in Rise of the Beasts. Very literally, like, the very first trans performer in a Transformers fiction, and it's in the newest fiction that is out there. So good timing. Like, a good thing I waited to make this video. This request came in like last month, and I held off on it because I wanted to save it for Pride Month. And now we have something very appropriate for it. So thank you, Rise of the Beasts, for adding to today's list. She is, like many on this list, she is a theater actress. She's done the voice of Audrey in the regional version of Little Shop of Horrors. She's also in American Horror Story. Interesting that they seem to converge there. Also did a character in Luke Cage. And if we're talking like great, we're talking back to like award winning, Golden Globe winner. This is someone who has won legitimate awards as well as an Emmy nomination too. Pretty good stuff. She's actually got quite a bit of like nominations under her belt and a few wins. Like, so good on her. Again, we hire really good people to act and perform in these franchises, strangely enough. We're gonna wrap it up with the most obvious one, the most long tenured one. Someone who really we could not have had Transformers in the state that it is without her. That is the lesbian on the list, and that is Susan Blue. Absolute legend in Transformers and in the animation industry in general. So naturally, she is the voice of RC from the original G1 cartoon, a character that wasn't even supposed to exist until the original writers started, and the writers for the movie really pushed to have a female Transformer present in the main cast. So good on them. And Susan Blue is the one who got the nod. Now, obviously, she performed in quite a few cartoons in the 80s and into the 90s. But what we really know her for is as a voice director, in which she did a ton. Now, this is a woman who got her start voicing a show, or directing in a show that literally no one else wanted to touch because it sounded so weird that everyone was certain that this would just doom their career if this was on their resume. And that show ended up being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's the director. What a start to a directing career, right? One of the most popular cartoons, the most successful cartoons of all time, 10 seasons? At a time when most cartoons were lucky to get one? That's incredible. That's an incredible performance. And she goes on. She's the director for Beast Wars. We know how well that show went. She's director for Beast Machines. Okay, the direction is not the problem in that show. Let's admit that's not where the problems of that show lie. She was also the director for Transformers Animated, and she was the director for Prime, but only for about 6 episodes, and backed out when her wife unfortunately passed away. So that's kind of where Sue's involvement with Transformers ends, but you can see like how long she stuck with that franchise in front of the mic and behind it as well. this is, and of course, being present in so many shows, she dipped her toes back in and recorded a few things. She did Transmutate, she did Una in Beast Wars, she was also animated RC and Flare Up, even doing an accent to match the fan who did the Flare Up voice in the BotCon reading, which is a really cool nod. There's a fan out there who I have not talked to in a long time, but it's super cool that Sue threw that in. Specifically to reference a fan who first voiced the character. But yeah, that is the list. So, admittedly, not too many names out there. Yeah, again, I think that lies in just how tightly knit Transformers performers are for like the first half of the franchise. So we haven't really had a chance to branch out much. And admittedly, there's probably more, but I do not have a month to go through literally every single Twitter account for every IDW and comic book artist and writer who's ever done anything Transformer to see if they have a pride flag on their Twitter account. So you'll excuse me if I left any notable names out, but I wanted to give you just a small sampling of a little bit of everything in the rainbow spectrum of where Transformers have been and some of the people behind some of our favorite pieces of Transformers fiction that just happen to be in the LGBT. Guess what? They didn't hurt a thing, did they? In fact, I think they're responsible for some of the best stuff we've gotten. So, thank you guys for watching. Happy Pride Month to everybody in the LGBT. I hope it's going well for you. And if you're in Florida, I'm sorry. I genuinely am. But that's it for me today. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.
We're gonna have to get your names for the books. You, pair 1.
William Current.
Roll me a deception check.
I thought their name was Pain.
Roll a disadvantage.
Okay.
That was like the opposite of the help action there. You, Goblin.
First name D's.
Watch your tongue.